Hello and welcome to the Chroncast. This is our first episode. My name is Ryan. I'm the lead editor, I guess you could say, of Canucks Chronicles. I also run the Twitter, and for today at least, I'll be moderating the podcast.
I'm Alex Rickman. I am our lead writer. I also run our Instagram, and I will be joining the podcast. Of course, I will be. I'm talking on it.
I'm Zach Mason. I am basically just some guy, I guess. They know me and they asked me to be on the podcast. You may have seen me from a few articles I've written on there, but I am mostly just a podcast guy for the minute.
Yeah, well, Zach, you'll also be editing and producing, I would hope, because I still don't have
It's kind
that
of the
in my skill
agreement.
set.
So if you're not doing that,
Yeah.
got a bit
Kind
of
of
an
the
issue.
spine of this whole podcast operation that, that's everyone's so excited about. All right. Today's episode we're hoping should be around 20 to 30 minutes long. We're going to start with the Canucks and then maybe move into a couple of other side topics, in the world of sports as a whole. First things first, we beat the Leafs. I'm pretty stoked about that. 6-4. Niels Höglander and Connor Garland both with 2-goal games. Thatcher Demko made 40 saves on 44 shots.
I think so, yeah.
Something like that. And most importantly, the Leafs couldn't score on a 6-on-3 with $44 million worth of players on the ice. It was really just poetic to watch, to say.
It's just always a beautiful day in Canada when the Leafs lose, right?
Yeah, especially on national television.
Oh, it's the best. The best.
Yeah. Yesterday was Hockey Day in Canada, not just Hockey Night in Canada. So
Yep.
Some could say the pressure was really on. But, it's the Leafs, so any sort of pressure is too much pressure for them.
Of course. But, in true Canuck fashion, we did find a way to make it interesting there for a little while.
Yeah.
It
really
coming out of that. Go ahead.
Okay. It really shouldn't have been 3-3. I kind of thought that Thatcher Demko kind of had a weak second period there.
Oh, totally.
And a few poor shots kind of let the Leafs back into a game where we should have been able to see things out. But I can't fault him for one period when he's been, nothing short of fantastic, like a Vezina contender for the rest of the season. But it was important to see that even with how fast the Leafs got back into the game, the boys weren't discouraged and they were able to score a few more goals and see things out.
Yeah, coming out of that first period, I was feeling pretty confident with how things were going. 5 minutes into the second, I was worrying, but especially once Garland got that one at the end of the second, you just had this feeling we don't blow leads once we have them this season. So it was just feeling so much relief when he scored there. And even when Marner made it 4-4, it didn't feel like a crushing blow so much. It just felt like, all right, let's go get another one quickly.
Yeah. It's been, I guess you can really use it as like a mark to show how much progress they've made. Even for the first 20 some odd games of the season, it was like no lead was safe. I was scarred because it's just every Canucks team in the last 10 plus years has just been known to just completely dismantle themselves almost when they have leads in big games and they're up maybe 2 goals on on a good team. Toronto is not a bad team. As much as I like to rip on the Leafs, they're not a bad team. And
they have too much talent to be a bad team.
Exactly. To be able to see the Canucks get back into a game where it looked like they past Canucks teams would have been down and out, right? Last year the Canucks blow a 3-0 lead. I'm like, okay, great. 7-3 for Toronto final score. It's refreshing to see a team with this much effort.
It's amazing how last year it feels like if that had gone to 3-1, we would have been panicking. This one it was at 3-3 and it still felt like, we were not out of it whatsoever. Because last year it felt like the moment we give up a goal, everything's going to fall apart. But this year they just seem so much more resilient.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of that has to do with Rick Tocchet. Because
totally.
you could just see it in how all 18 guys on the ice on the bench, on the ice, they all want the same thing. And Tocchet has completely changed the mindset of this team where everyone forechecks, everyone backchecks. And everybody has that belief they always play like it's 0-0, like the game just started, regardless of whether or not it actually is 0-0 or if it's 6-4 at the end of the game. They've got, 6 guys out on the ice for Toronto, 3 guys for us. Seeing that kind of resilience and that, dog mentality is really refreshing, and I believe Rick Tocchet deserves all the credit for that.
Totally. And a guy I want to mention who really stepped up yesterday, he's had, I'm going to say an inconsistent season, but an inconsistent 5 or 6 years, really, Tyler Myers. He really showed up yesterday when we needed him. He brought the physicality that we've needed from him, and we haven't gotten from him a lot of the time. He was out there, and he was making those big hits, and he was being the aggressor, and he was being agitating and getting Leafs guys to make bad decisions. You need that from someone.
I think if we want to start talking about playoff runs, which honestly, the way this season's going, as long as it's not an embarrassing first round exit, I'm proud of how this season's gone.
Totally.
They've made so much progress, but when you want to start talking about playoff runs, you need your guys like Tyler Myers, who's 6'8". You need him to be sending guys into the bench, right? You want to be in the playoffs. It's not a matter of how dazzling your forwards can be that wins you games. It's how scary you can be, how scared other teams are to play you. That's what's going to win you games. So if you can get consistent efforts like that from Tyler Myers, where he might take a penalty or two, but he's sending guys into the bench, he's laying out big hits, he's putting his body on the line. That's the most important thing for a team that wants to contend for the playoffs.
Perhaps a certain blue team in Toronto could take notes.
Yeah,
you'd think,
couple
right?
of different blue teams in Toronto come to mind when you talk about playoff chokes. Of course, the one in the Yankees hat has to let out a laugh. I mean, I may be a Canucks fan. I'm also a Jays fan. Honestly, just word to the wise, don't cheer for Toronto sports teams if you value your mental health.
Sound
if
advice,
you're getting
really.
into a new sport, if you're getting into a new sport, whether it's basketball or hockey or baseball or soccer, the general right decision for picking a team is to just not pick Toronto.
Yeah, really. Just not a city that finds themselves in successful
best choice,
positions.
pick whoever won last season.
Manchester City fan.
Said the City fan.
Said the City fan. No, I think we're going on a bit of a tangent here about something other than the Canucks, so I think I'm going to try and bring the conversation back. Jim Rutherford got extended recently. What's everybody's thoughts on that?
If I'd heard this last year at a certain point, I would have been kind of upset about it, but seeing the results of the roster this year, I think it is a well-deserved extension. I've also heard, we heard last night on Hockey Night that Alvin is getting close to an extension too. I'm really happy we're keeping the group together here. They've done something pretty good with the team. They've got us going in a different direction to what we're used to here. Good to have them back.
Yeah, it's nice to see front office guys who have actually brought quality hockey to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Because having to put up with, the Benning regime for, 8 years? And having coaches like Travis Green, Willie Desjardins, not prime John Tortorella, to name a few. It's been rough. So seeing extensions being made in the front office that I think fans can agree are deserved it's a good thing, and it's also kind of shows that Vancouver wants to be one of those serious teams in the league that you can't they keep their front office guys around when other teams could probably use someone like a Jim Rutherford, like a Patrick Allvin.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to keep those guys around is important, and I think it also credit to Aquilini, honestly, because I think I still am.
I hate that you're right.
Yeah, I was never pro Aquilini, but what he deserves credit for this too, because he's the one hiring guys, he's the one signing paychecks, and he's this team's culture has completely changed in a year. And I think he had the wrong idea with the whole time during the Benning regime, and that gave Benning a really bad rap because he was stuck, right? He forced Benning to build a competing team out of not a competing team.
He was trying to make him make wine from sewage water.
Yes, exactly. He was trying to make wine from sewage water, and he didn't have a choice. And he ended up getting fired for that. So I think we can drag on Aquilini all we want for the past 8 years, but if we're talking about the now, he deserves quite a bit of credit.
Yeah. he hit a point where the failures had gotten bad enough where I think he's starting to learn from what went wrong there, and he's trying to put competent people in and let them do what they need to do. Because I feel like with Benning, he was a little too hands-on. He was trying to force him in a certain direction. With Rutherford and Alvin, it feels like he's willing to let them do their own thing.
Yeah. I think that's probably a big part of this. It feels like Alvin has a lot more autonomy than Benning.
Yeah.
And Rutherford as well. I think having a president of hockey operations sort of establishes like a break between ownership and the front office.
Yeah.
Because he can sort of moderate it and just like, if anyone in that organization will say no to Aquilini when it comes to hockey decisions, it'll be Jim Rutherford.
Totally.
So I think having him in that position is good.
Mm-hmm.
With all this talk about the front office, the trade deadline is just around the corner. This is a time of the year where I personally would dread in past years because it would be the time that I'd see my favorite players get traded to teams that wanted to go and win the cup. Well, not enough is what it is, but it's like, you see your favorite players like Luke Shen, Bo Horvat, like guys, good guys, good hockey players getting dealt to other teams because those teams are going to win the cup and we're going to be golfing in mid-April. But this year it feels different. It feels like the Canucks, I should say, genuinely want to compete and are in a position to do so. So they're going to hopefully go out and get somebody. What do you guys think they should be prioritizing?
I'd have to say at this point it would be a forward. I think our defense is just completely different from past years. It's humming along pretty nicely right now with the guys we have. And even having guys like, Noah Juleson and Mark Friedman able to step up and play games if you had someone out for a few games with an injury is huge for us. But it feels like the forward core is kind of missing that one guy in the top six. Whether it be a center or a winger, I'm not sure yet, but I feel like we are kind of short a man.
Zach, would you like to chime in?
This may not even be a proper trade deadline thing, but it would just be nice to see a decision made with Kuzmenko because you always hear, oh, we might be trading him, we might not be trading him. He's scratched because he's going to be traded, then he's back on the team.
I agree with that.
If we're even going to get anything good for him, it's kind of hard to do when he's so wishy-washy on where he is.
It does kind of feel like the more we wait, the more his value may tank too, which kind of you hinted at there, but it would be nice to see just a final decision get made with him. I think that will probably be coming up when we actually do pull the trigger on another trade, but it's tough for him too, really, to be in this situation.
Yeah, I think Tocchet's opinion on Kuzmenko is starting to change because he is going, like he did say something recently in the media, I know. He went out and said, like, I think he's about to turn that corner. I think his game's going to change. So I think we should probably get some clarity in, like, the next couple of weeks. What day is the trade deadline, Alex? Would you know?
March, I think it's the 8th or the 9th. Early March.
Oh, okay. So we've got, like, 5
We've got a bit of time still
before the trade.
I
think we'll probably know in the next 2-3 weeks whether or not Kuzmenko is staying. Personally, I think if they're going to move him, I want to see them bring in a top six forward at the very least.
Yeah.
And depending on who that top six forward is and what their contract structure looks like, how they'll affect our cap hit, I would maybe want to see a little bit more added on. Because I understand that Kuzmenko hasn't been great this year. I think he's probably had the toughest time adapting to Tocchet's system of any of the, I would say, like, core forwards. And his scoring numbers can tell you that for sure. So I think he'll hopefully figure out in the next week or two, just like try and start gelling with Tocchet's system. And if that doesn't change by then, I would say by, like, if we're 3 weeks from now, like family day, Kuzmenko still hasn't gelled with this team. He doesn't fit in. He's not doing what Tocchet wants him to. That's when I would say they're probably gonna really start to look for trade options for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say Jim Rutherford, too, has never really been one to wait for deadline day. Like, he's a pretty aggressive executive, and I think he's kind of passed that on to Alvin. So I think it won't be deadline day that we see him moved. If anything, it would probably be at some point in January or February. And kind of like you said, wanted to see a top 6 forward brought in for him. I would definitely like to see either that or maybe assets that we could turn around to use to get a top 6 forward, or that could enable us to trade stuff we already have to get that top 6 guy. But I do think, especially if we're moving him, we definitely need to add another guy in the top 6 just for numbers, if nothing else. I know Friedman yesterday on Hockey Night mentioned Jake Genson and Elias Lindholm as possible candidates. I don't know what it would take to get them, but would certainly be great to have somebody like that in your top 6.
Yeah, I think Lindholm will be too tough to get because I think Calgary is too close to a playoff spot, and with the core that they have now, I think if they're gonna do anything with it, they're gonna maybe go for one last push to just squeeze into the playoffs and see what happens.
Yeah.
Then maybe they'll blow it up because right now they're only 4 points out. A guy who I really like and I'm really hoping the Canucks will be able to take a run at is Joel Eriksson in Minnesota.
Yes.
Because the Wild they're still only 6 points out of the wild card, but it's a very competitive spot. They've got teams have games in hand on them. And then after the bottom 3 in the West, which is a complete disaster, Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose, it's them. So I think Eriksson Ek is a guy that we could try and get. I don't know what they would want in return, but I think it would be more worthwhile to throw everything in the kitchen sink at getting Eriksson Ek than Lindholm. Personally, I like his defensive metrics and his defensive game a lot more. And I think if you want to have top 6 forwards built for a playoff team, they have to be. And Rick Tocchet has said the same thing about Kuzmenko. They have to be good forechecking forwards, which Kuzmenko is not. So if you're looking for someone to replace him, if you do end up dealing him, and you want someone who fits Rick Tocchet's system, I think the best option is Joel Eriksson Ek.
Yeah. So my last article I wrote was actually outlining some deadline pieces, and Eriksson Ek was one who I identified as my personal favorite possible piece. Like, if I could just take another forward from a roster, he would be the one I would choose. The biggest concern with him, like you said, would be price, not only in terms of acquisition, but in terms of his contract is a lot longer than a lot of other guys on the list in terms of what he has left. So it's a question of, do we have the cap space going forward too? But I think if you can make the numbers work on him, he is certainly the best option. You know, he plays big physical guy. He's a center, which helps a lot, obviously, just in terms of how we're lining up right now with Suter as our second line center. You'd probably be better bumping him into the bottom 6 in some capacity. But really, if you could get Eriksson Ek for a semi-reasonable price, I think you have to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would assume that with the direction Minnesota appears to be heading in, that prospects and young players will be part of what they would want for him.
Yeah. You'd have to assume.
You would have to assume. I think Kuzmenko, in terms of just he's on what, $5 million for the next 3 years after this year?
I thought it was shorter than that. I think it might only be 2 years or so. Zach, do you mind checking this out for us?
Perfect. I'll check Minnesota's cap friendly while you're at that. But yeah, I'm fairly sure his contract is comparable, at least in cap hit, to Eriksson Ek.
I think it is.
Kuzmenko is, including this season, $5.5 million AAV for
2 seasons.
Yeah, and Eriksson Ek. So Eriksson Ek is just below that. His contract though has a lot longer on it.
For sure.
He does have no movement clauses, nothing like that. He could be dealt to us, and there would be no interjection on his part. And yeah, I think I wouldn't mind throwing a couple of prospects at him. I personally would not, under any circumstance, trade Lekkerimaki or Willander.
Agreed.
But other than that, there's I would be perfectly fine dealing a prospect or two. And for the first time ever, I'm actually okay with us trading our first round pick, because I think it'll be low enough in the order to justify it. And with the way things are going right now, I'm quite happy sacrificing a pick for an asset like Eriksson Ek.
I would say with us not having a second, I would be at least a little concerned about moving it. But if it's for the right piece right now, I think you absolutely have to do it. The other thing I wonder about the idea of Kuzmenko being involved in that is I'm not sure how interested Minnesota would be in him given their current situation. But that as the possibility of maybe you could make it two separate deals. Like send Kuzmenko to somebody who's looking to be a little bit more competitive and thinks they could add him, and then maybe use assets from that to enable an Eriksson Ek trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm reading through our prospects right now, and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm looking like, I think Vasily Podkolzin, I would definitely send in a Eriksson Ek
Yep.
deal. Linus Karlsson as well, Atu Rati. I
Yep.
think in terms of prospects, Lekkerimäki and Willander are really the only two that I'm like super high on like keeping.
And I would say Pettersson I would have a hard time parting with. Not that I'd be entirely unwilling, but I think I'd certainly not be thrilled to see him go.
Yeah, I mean, he's a defenseman, so he could fully take 2-3 more years before he makes it to the, like, at least considers a shot at the NHL.
Yeah.
Is he playing in Abbotsford, or is he playing in
he's
Sweden
in
right now?
Sweden right now, but I think the plan is to have him in Abbotsford either for the start of next season or when his season in Sweden ends.
Oh, okay. So
him and Lekkerimäki, I think they're both bringing to Abbotsford at some point soon.
Yeah, I think it'll take a lot longer to develop Pettersson just because he is a defenseman. And I think if they're to focus on the now, then he's a player who I would not mind sending for an asset like Eriksson Ek.
Yeah, I'm not entirely unwilling to trade him. I just think it would be. I'm quite high on him as a prospect, so I think he would be worth trying to keep if at all possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Eriksson Ek quite a bit. I feel like we've taken a little bit too much time on that. Another name that I like off the trade bait board is Sean Walker. I know we think that defense is pretty sound, but he's a right-handed defenseman. He's got what for? This is from December 8th, so this is a couple months ago. But he's got he was at 14 points in 29 games, and he's got a low enough cap hit that I think we can make it work. He's got 1 year left, and it's $2.6 million.
Yeah. So my one question there for you, if we were to bring in a defenseman, which of our current defensemen would you have benched or moved out in some capacity to make room?
I would probably move out like some of the scratch guys. Like I would try and move out like a Mark Friedman or something like that. Of the guys who played like yesterday, I would say Carson Soucy or Ian Cole should be competing for that spot. And I think like Noah Juleson or Mark Friedman, I think would be guys who would have to head out. But I think the upgrade bringing in Sean Walker would really solidify our right hand side, which has been my personal biggest concern, because if say Ronek gets injured, our best right-handed defenseman is Tyler Myers. And as good as Tyler Myers can be on the right day, I'm not sure having that sort of as a top two defenseman is a good contingency plan for the playoffs.
He's Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know which guy you're getting on a nightly basis.
Exactly. And I think we need consistency, and I see consistency in getting a guy like Sean Walker or a guy like Ilya Lyubushkin even. Yeah,
Lyubushkin could be a shout too. You also have to wonder, we've been linked to Tanev a little bit. I would love to see him back, but I'm wondering if that might be more something they wait until July to address, try to get him as a free agent.
Yeah.
Especially
I completely... No, go ahead.
Okay, I think half of our defense at least are free agents this offseason, so we could see a few guys out the door. Someone like Tanev could at least serve as, a stopgap for a few years before we have a guy like Wielander or Hunter, the one with the hard-to-pronounce name, the OHL. So someone like Tanev could be worth looking at, but I don't know what I'd give up for him in a trade right now, just given his age and the lack of contract security.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few Flames fans because anyone who goes to UVic will know it's absolutely riddled with this plague called Albertans.
Oh, that's a shame.
And I've talked to some Flames fans about, Tanev and like Lindholm, Hannafin, guys that they're probably going to trade because they're sitting outside the playoffs right now. Their core is aging. Jonathan Huberdeau's had a nightmare this season. And it's looking like the project that they had assembled is not going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
So TSN has 3 Flames in the top 3 spots of their most recent trade bait board.
Okay.
I agree. I see a Flames fire sale coming, but I
Fire
don't
sale.
think Tanev. I don't think Tanev at $4.5 million this season is the right move. I would rather wait until July and try and lock him
Yeah.
up with some term
Just
as
gotta
opposed to.
hope that. Just gotta
I mean,
really
and he
hope that.
also. You talk.
Okay, wait. There we go. Just gotta hope that he doesn't end up. Under the assumption that he does get traded, I've heard Toronto linked to him. I've just gotta hope that he doesn't end up signing wherever he ends up as a free agent. Toronto does worry me a little bit because I know he's an Ontario native and may want to play for the Leafs, but just I feel like if we can present him a good offer in free agency, you can tell he still loves Vancouver. I think he would come if we could give him an offer.
Yeah. I think I think putting aside the sentimental value of Chris Tanev for a lot of Canucks fans who saw him with like the playing with the Sedins and
Mm.
playing for us in the bubble and just overall being associated with a lot of positive memories of Canucks hockey. Putting him
Yeah.
aside, that's in July. That's a 33, maybe 34-year-old right
Yeah.
defenseman who he's a solid player two-way. He doesn't have great offensive stats. He's
Mm-hmm.
definitely he's sound defensively, but he's really a guy who I think in free agency this year gets 2 years maybe maximum
Yeah.
on like $3 million. I
Yeah.
can't see him earning a pay raise at his age, and I don't think he'll be wanting to lock in anywhere longer than 2 years, and I don't think any teams will
Yeah.
want to commit to it.
No, I
So
think 2 years is
if
about the ceiling of what I'd offer.
if they are to make a move for Tanev, um, it has to be for not that much,
Mm-hmm.
especially at the deadline. I don't want to see a genuinely valued asset moved out the door.
Yeah.
Especially for what could just be a
Yeah, for what could.
especially for what could just be a 3-4
Yeah.
month rental type of thing.
Yeah,
Totally.
no,
Sorry to interrupt.
it's not like I don't want to see us move out a high draft pick or a good prospect for
Yeah.
Tanev, because it isn't worth it to get like 15 regular season games and then a playoff run out of him just to see him leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's better options at the deadline for right defensemen, and I think there will be better options in free agency for it as well.
Yeah. I think the one thing with Tanev too is I wouldn't necessarily make him an offer as if he was going to be like going into the top pair immediately and replacing Hronek or something. If you could sign him for just like 2 years, like you said, decently cheap, decently low money, and just throw him into your bottom couple of pairs or something for a couple of years, and then you have Wielander eventually take the roster spot from him when he's ready. I think having him and his leadership more than anything for that could be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, leadership and veteran presence can really be brought by anybody who's been in the NHL for a certain amount of time. I know that sounds like it's not a great take, but nowadays you can see it like the way Bo Horvat got traded like last year over JT Miller. Having leadership and having captaincy is important, but
Mm.
it's not like an invaluable asset that can, you know,
Yeah,
take 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 precedence over on ice contribution and just like the sense it makes having them for a long-term project.
yeah, I think it's just like, again, I wouldn't sign him as like a key piece, but if you can get him, if he's depending on who you lose, because I wouldn't be surprised to see like one of Cole or Zadorov walk out. If you could maybe lose one of them and you have Tanev just on your third pair with like a Carson Soucy or something for me, just kind of a shutdown bottom pair, something like that
Hmm.
could work as long as, again, like certain things have to be there, like the money has to be reasonable, the term has to be reasonable, and there has to be like clear consideration that if there's a better player available, that's who you're going to sign. But I
Hmm.
do think having him around, and going back to the leadership thing too, his case might be a little different because he knows a lot of the guys in the room still. Like he's still going to be, having a good relationship with guys like Hughes and Besser and Miller, who he did play with. So something like that
Hmm.
may make the leadership a little more valuable than that of a veteran who hasn't been in this room, hasn't been in this organization, may not have played with certain guys.
Yeah. I don't know when I think about guys who are heading out in July on defense, I
Yeah.
think Myers is like
Oh,
I'm fairly
how'd I forget
certain
about him?
Myers will be gone. Um,
Yeah.
I don't I don't see him turning it around drastically enough in this last like half season that he has with us to justify keeping him, considering the first 5 years of him and
Yeah, not unless the money
how
were.
most mhm, how most fans feel about him. It was
Yeah.
kind of the same when he left Winnipeg, where it was like some other team will take him and we don't want him, so just take him.
Someone else
Like
will offer him
that's the
more.
sense. Yeah, someone else will offer
Yeah.
him something that we don't want to offer him. And that
Yeah.
was kind of like when I was talking to Jets fans when they originally signed. I was like 13 when this happened, but I was talking to like Jets fans that I knew, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm fine with like letting Myers go. Someone else will pay him like a stupid amount of money that he doesn't deserve." And it ended up being us. Yeah,
Yeah.
funny. And I think because if you, it's really funny actually. If you ever watch the away broadcast on one of the games where Tyler Myers is like standout, has like a good performance, scores a goal, lays a big hit, something like that.
Yeah.
The away broadcasters and away teams in general, it feels like some of them are, not all of them, but a lot of them are really envious of him because he's six
Yeah.
foot eight,
Yeah.
and
Like there's certainly
that
appeal in a
seems
player just at his size.
yeah, and it's really alluring because I think it kind of sends other teams this like message that he's a lot better than he actually is. No offense to Tyler Myers, because he has been an overall good player for us this season,
Yeah.
I would say. But you listen to an example of this, I think would be the San Jose broadcast, because I listened to the San Jose broadcast last year when I think the Canucks just like destroyed them at one point.
Yeah.
Um, they were really talking highly about Tyler Myers,
Mm.
and I couldn't understand why. So I think he'll end up
Yeah.
going somewhere where they genuinely value him, and we'll be fine with that.
Yeah. I would say if you can get him back for like $2 million, I wouldn't mind having him, but I think someone else, like you said, will probably offer him more, and if he's offered an unreasonable amount, he's not worth keeping.
Yeah, I also think that um, our front office might stay away from bringing him back solely because I'm sure they're aware of how most of the city of Vancouver feels about him.
The chaos
You
giraffe
ask,
perception and all that.
well, not the chaos draft perception. It's just like it's the same thing with Jake Gardiner in Toronto. Like when Jake
Yeah.
Gardiner left Toronto, he was still objectively a good player. He was a guy I wanted the Canucks to sign, but
Yeah.
Leafs fans were so convinced that he was this like garbage defenseman who had like no impact. He was letting in goals for the other team. Like I think that similar perception has sort of been
Yeah.
made in Vancouver with Tyler Myers,
Yeah.
amongst fans and amongst some of the media as well.
Yeah, having
And I
spoken to
think
some fans about like kind of deadline related stuff, there are still people saying we need to bring in a defenseman because we have Tyler Myers in our lineup, which if you've watched him play lately, he's been pretty good lately. So I don't think
mhm,
that's necessarily true, but the perception is still there that he's a piece we need to be getting rid of.
yeah, and as long as that perception is there, I think it's probably best for the team, just in their eyes, to look for someone else who they could probably get for a lower cap hit with a similar contribution, like a
Hmm.
positive contribution, without a
Yeah.
lot of the things that he struggles with, like odd man rushes and bad penalties.
Yep. You have to
All
wonder
right.
too what may happen to some of our other defensemen, just because I believe we have 3 UFAs plus Hronek as an RFA, so I do wonder what the defense may look like next season, but I do trust that we'll get at least 2 of the 4 back.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I I think should we move on? It's been a while. Like,
Yeah, we have been on this for quite a while. What do you want to talk about?
um, anything else in the world of sports? I see NFL playoffs were today and yesterday.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I don't know. The We all get to watch Taylor Swift go to another NFL game this season.
They were better about it today than they've been most games, though, I think.
I disagree. I think having Jason
Yeah.
there made it worse. Yep.
I didn't mind Jason, though, because there was some entertainment with that because it was kind of unexpected to see him yelling with the shirt off, chugging a beer in the stands.
Yeah, I mean, if you've listened to the New Heights podcast, you would know that was completely expected. Like that,
Oh, I
he's
listen. It's
just
just
he's
you expect to hear it, but not necessarily to see it live in front of your face.
yeah. Um, I mean, it did happen.
Yep.
We're getting closer to the NFL script where Travis drops to a knee amongst all the confetti and pulls out a ring in front of Taylor, and
He's gonna propose
Swifties
with the
rip their
Super Bowl
hair
ring
out
when they
about it.
eventually win.
Yep, this is gonna be the NFL script. We're not naive, Goodell. We
I'm
know what's
honestly at a
happening.
point though where just as a Seahawks fan, as long as the 49ers don't win, I don't really care. Like
Fair enough.
I don't want the Chiefs to win, but my wanting the 49ers to lose trumps that.
Fair enough. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm I'm kind of just I've kind of zeroed in on the Lions because I mean it would be so great like to
Oh man.
see the Lions win a Super Bowl. It would be so fun for me. You know, I have a lot of family in
Yeah.
Michigan, and obviously I'm a Wolverines fan myself. So seeing Aiden Hutchinson go out and win the Super Bowl in his first
Yeah.
year in the NFL, it would be it would be nice. You know,
Isn't it a second
was it
year?
his first year?
I
I
think
can't remember.
I thought it was the second year.
I'm I'm too casual of a fan.
Time is a flat circle. It doesn't
Thank
matter.
you, Zach.
Yeah.
Um, Whatever it is, I would love to see the Lions win the Super Bowl this year. I think they're a
Mhm.
lot more fun than watching the same like Chiefs Niners Super Bowl, which we saw already like 3 years ago. That just really wasn't all that fun.
Yeah. And just like seeing Dan Campbell with the Super Bowl ring after that first press conference, I feel like we all thought this was going to be a disaster. But seeing how
Yeah,
well things have gone for Dan Campbell, you just got to love it.
yeah. No, I love Dan Campbell. I
Oh, he's
think
the best.
the NFL needs more guys like Dan Campbell and less guys
Yeah.
like Bill Belichick. Like I'll say that as a Patriots fan.
Yeah.
The right way for the NFL to go is to have personality. Like
Like
have
your Dan
players with
Campbells, your Mike
character.
McDaniels.
Yeah, and you know, I think that sort of thing goes for like that sort of thing goes for every league almost, where it's like if you can
Yeah.
have a coach who has a personality, I think
Yeah.
it gets the fans more involved. Same thing happened in Vancouver with Boudreaux. Like
Yeah.
the team itself under Boudreaux was objectively shite for a long time, like for a
Yeah.
lot of his tenure,
But it was
and
so fun to watch.
exactly, and like
Like
we
he
were
just
a lot of fair weathered Canucks fans were perfectly content with, you know, 40 and 40 seasons or
yeah.
35 and 45 seasons, so long as they get to chant Bruce there it is when the team
Yeah.
scores a goal.
It was fun
So
again.
yeah, it was fun again, and I think
After
having
years of just
again,
after years of stale Travis Green hockey and stale Travis Green personality, having Bruce and it wasn't necessarily good hockey, but it was fun hockey, and his fun personality just made things so much more lively.
yeah, and I think that's just like, that gets the fans involved, that gets the team some good press, and I think
Yeah.
ultimately having a coach like that just makes the team play better. So
Yeah.
I'm really rooting for the Lions for that reason.
Yeah.
Because
Like
yeah, you,
you
you
gotta love
can't
it,
you
and even
can't hate them.
totally, and someone like Jared Goff, just seeing the comeback story of him being totally written off by the Rams and just having this resurgence in Detroit, it's just great to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else should we talk about? Is there anything, or should we wrap this up?
The Ravens also exist. We should acknowledge their existence.
Yeah, but should we
Johnny.
though,
Sorry?
Johnny.
Zach?
What?
Going back to that Lamar. They're
We're,
11-1 since Lamar Jackson
Right,
tweeted
the Johnny tweet. Sorry, I drew a blank there. Yeah.
yeah, I was completely lost.
I feel like an idiot now.
In fairness, it's bizarre without context. It's even bizarre,
It's bizarre with
in
context,
fact.
yeah. It's just bizarre. Just like the Ravens.
No, the Ravens are good.
Oh yeah,
Obviously they're good. They're the 1 seed. What am I talking about?
they're for me as the Seahawks fan, they're kind of the boring team to talk about because, The Lions I love because of Dan. The Chiefs are just all over the media right now. The Niners I hate with a burning passion, and then the Ravens are also there.
Yeah.
They're just
The
kind of the
Ravens are
fourth
just
team
kind of there.
remaining. They're
Yeah,
just
I
kind
mean,
of, okay, they're there too.
I'm gonna root for them next week, but
Yeah.
it's not gonna be the if they lose, it won't be the be all end all for me because it would be so much sweeter to watch the Detroit Lions lift the Lombardi while Brittany Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes recreate the Stephon Diggs picture from the sideline. So I will be cheering for the Ravens to win the AFC, but if they lose, it's not the end of the world.
The AFC is just not the game I'm as concerned with. I just really cannot stand seeing the Niners make the Super Bowl. And if they make it, I will be cheering hardcore for whoever they're against. If it's the Chiefs, it's the Chiefs.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of ironic as a Patriots fan. It's kind of weird as a Patriots fan to say this, but the only team in the AFC that I was really hoping, or the only teams in the AFC I was really hoping could make some damage were the Dolphins and the Bills. Because they've been... I know, it sounds ridiculous because I am a Patriots
but I
fan.
get it. They're the fun ones.
Yeah. They're the fun ones. They're the teams with
Yeah.
personality. They're the teams with good young players. They're the teams that haven't been good in a very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, not good, but they haven't been to a Super Bowl in a very long time.
Like the Bills, and when the Bills made it, they lost 4 in a row.
Yeah. So it's like those are the teams where it's just kind of like, for the sake of humanity, I want them to do well. Not for my own sake as a Patriots fan, because most Patriots fans would want to fight me just for saying that out loud.
What a humanitarian you are.
Yeah, no, I'm such a great person. And our listeners are surely not going to grow to hate my voice by the time this podcast is over. If they don't already. Yeah. With that being said, I think we've been here for almost 40 minutes, so
we have.
I think we should wrap this up.
I think we should.
Next episode, hopefully there'll be a lot more talk about new headlines, new moves. Maybe Kuzmenko is still a Canuck. Maybe he's not.
Yep.
Maybe Joel Eriksson-Ek will be a Canuck. Maybe he won't be.
Fingers crossed. I'd love to see it.
Maybe
Tyler Myers is the second coming. Maybe Tyler Myers is the second coming of Wayne Gretzky again. Nobody knows.
Yeah, no, we could see a Tyler Myers Bobby Orr transition arc in the next 2-3 weeks of hockey, where he overtakes Kevin Carr but not Ken Hughes in points.
It's the Canucks. You never know. It's just
it's Canucks hockey.
There's no planning for the Canucks.
Fun. The thing about the Canucks is just there's nothing can be expected, but everything is fun.
Yep.
And we beat the Leafs, so we beat the Leafs, so I've been able to show my face in public.
You're welcome, Canada.
You're welcome, Canada. All right. With that being said, thank you all for listening. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't get to this point. Those of you who did stick around,
those 3 of you who did.
I respect it.
Also, hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Dad. I guess until next time. See you later.